All right, let's move on to the running back position. We are modern in our offense, and so we're going to have one running back selection, two wide receiver selections, and one running back wide receiver flex. So we got to start with our RB1. A couple suggestions that we've got right here. Jahmyr Gibbs, who left Georgia Tech and will be showing up at Alabama. Zach Evans, former five-star prospect, left TCU and will be joining Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. Travis Dye, Oregon's best running back a year ago. He is also going to be showing up at USC, as we see Ole Miss and USC showing up again in our debates. And then Montrell Johnson, who followed Billy Napier from Louisiana to Florida, former three-star with a 90 rating by the 24/7 Sports Transfer Committee. He had 12 rushing touchdowns last season, starting for the Ragin' Cajuns.
I mean, I think Gibbs is the obvious choice. I think to me, it's no different than Caleb Williams. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is just already incredibly talented, and maybe a lot of the country, like fan-wise, isn't as familiar with it because he went to Georgia Tech. But he was a very highly rated recruit who was very productive while at Georgia Tech. And now you're putting him into the Alabama offense, playing behind an Alabama offensive line with Bryce Young at quarterback and with those receivers. Like, defenses aren't going to be able to key on him like they could when they were facing Georgia Tech. So he's going to have a whole lot more freedom to be able to, be a runner in that offense, to be a pass catcher in that offense. I think he's just going to put up absolutely monster numbers.
So I do think it's notable that Florida took Montrell Johnson.
Yes.
Right? Like, I think that's always a good sign for a player. If the coach moves up a level and wants to take somebody from his former school, that means he thinks like, hey, this guy was a real stud. There's guys who had really good stats for ULL who did not follow him to Florida. Maybe he thought they were more like guys who were going to have good stats against that league, or maybe he thought Florida didn't have a weakness there.
They also had like 24 super seniors, so there's a lot of exhausted eligibility from that.
That's true as well.
Too deep on both sides.
And I think Travis Dye is a good player, but to me, this is a two-man race, really.
Evans, I'll fight for Dye and Evans.
Okay.
And Travis Dye was not in the two-man race?
No. To me, it's like the two most talented guys here are Evans and Gibbs. I'm going to vote Gibbs because Gibbs comes with less baggage than Evans does. Like, I trust Gibbs to not do not criminal stuff, but like just dumb stuff off the field, get into fights with the coaching staff, like not fist fights, just arguments and whatnot. I trust Gibbs to be on the field. And the reports we've got out of Alabama so far are that Gibbs is making some really good athletes look stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to cover him. So I'm going Gibbs. The only guy I think maybe would tempt me is Evans, but I can't trust him to stay on the field consistently.
I'll fight for Dye over Evans, with trust being the main word. I mean, Dye's a workhorse. I mean, he is able to do so many things for you in the offense. He has played for Oregon for a long time. He's got a bigger body of work. He's got a ton of experience. I really like that, especially over Evans, who has a higher ceiling, better raw talent, but as you mentioned, has been in and out of, and might be a Gary Patterson thing. The rules might be a little different.
High school too.
I'm
sensing a trend.
I think that when we get into the flex position arguments, I will nominate Dye over Evans, but I am not going to argue because, like you, Bud, I have heard nothing but positive things about the way that Gibbs has looked around his teammates, which of course are all national championship caliber down there in Tuscaloosa.
Another running back name to consider, kind of a sleeper, Jalen Berger, who transferred from Wisconsin to Michigan State. He had in 2020 during the COVID season, he was a true freshman. He was pretty productive in that offense, but for whatever reason last year, he just kind of got, he fell down the depth chart and didn't really see as much playing time. But we've seen, Michigan State had some success with another transfer running back last year, and we know that they like to feature running backs in their offense. So I think Jalen Berger is somebody who can go to Michigan State and maybe find a much larger role and put up some pretty good numbers.
Berger left the team in like mid-October.
Mm-hmm.
That was like that. I saw that as like an interpersonal relationship breakdown. Coach and player not seeing eye to eye. Of course, Braylon Allen then emerges. So
yeah, that was part of it too. But
coaching staff at least feels like they had an option and someone to go to. But I'm with you. I had higher expectations for Berger going into last season, and when it sort of fell apart with the staff, and he ended up leaving the program. I've definitely got my eye on him for sure. Would not take over Gibbs though.
No,
I wanted to go Travis Dye. That was my coming into this conversation pick, but I'll default to maybe the greatest coach we've seen in Nick Saban, because I feel like he has a choice of transfers that he could take, and he's got options, or he could tell him no and he could go with a 5-star signee that he could get in there. And then just thinking about it, like best year this season, you're in that system with that talent around you. I'll give the edge to Gibbs. I think it probably is the safest pick out of these, but I think Travis Dye would be a close second for me. I came in here thinking him, but turnover there, you wonder. We've seen other running backs split reps. Is Gibbs going to be the workhorse for Alabama? Is he going to get the majority? Is he going to be a slam dunk, 1,000, 1,100 yard carrier?
I think that he's probably going to be the primary player in the backfield. I don't think he's going to be a 3-down workhorse every single possession, because they do have so much talent at the roster. But I don't think it's a coincidence, because if you look at Alabama last year, like, nothing against Brian Robinson, but it was the first time in a while where you just kind of felt like Alabama was somewhat ordinary at running back. Like, they had a good guy, but they didn't have a great guy. And maybe Saban was sitting there thinking, like, they had injuries at the receiver position that kind of hurt them really badly at the end of the year. And Saban was probably like, man, I wish I had a Jahmyr Gibbs type of guy I could maybe turn to right now when my receivers are hurt, because he's an excellent pass catcher too. So I do think he's not going to be the primary part of that offense. Bryce Young is still going to be the primary part, but I think Gibbs is going to play a very large role. Yes.
In the last 2 years, Bama has been victimized by shorter, Marshall Faulk type pass catchers out of the backfield in 20, whatever year, or I guess it was 2019. Edwards-Helaire got him a couple times in that game for LSU. And then last year, Dalvin's little brother, James Cook, was also used as a threat. And I think he got him as well in the game in Tuscaloosa. So I wonder if Nick's not thinking, I'd like one of those guys that we can all of a sudden split out wide, and then you got to make some decisions. And Bryce is really good at making those quick decisions, finding the weakness. I think they'll be able to get Gibbs the ball either in wide open space, or they'll find the duck and put Gibbs on that guy and have some fun with it. Like
split them all the way out wide.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden make some really difficult decisions.
He's a really good player.
Yeah. We had him at the Army Bowl, and it was one of those situations where you don't ask the kid about this because it's rude, but in your head, you're like, is he going to go to Georgia Tech?
Why?
Like, really?
Well, he and Jeff Sims,
talent-wise,
they bought in.
Tipped us up.
They did.
But that's what sent all of us to the Jeff Collins. Like, here we go. He's changing things right now. Then Jeff Sims has not developed, and Jahmyr Gibbs is out the door. And if you wonder why the Georgia Tech stock meter is dropping, it's because all those things we were excited about have not played out as expected.